This chapter covers the ways that cybersecurity professionals analyze what has happened after a cyber attack. It explains security software and hardware vulnerabilities and the different categories of security vulnerabilities, the different types of malicious software that are known as malware, and the symptoms of malware are also discussed. The different ways attackers can infiltrate a system is covered, as well as the denial of service attacks. Most modern cyber attacks are considered to be blended attacks. Blended attacks use multiple techniques to infiltrate and attack a system. When an attack cannot be prevented, it is the job of a cybersecurity professional to reduce the impact of an attack. As we said, we have two main vulnerabilities introduced by software and hardware. Software vulnerabilities are introduced by errors in the operating system or at the application level or application code. Meanwhile, hardware vulnerabilities are often caused by hardware design flaws. Security vulnerabilities are any kind of software or hardware defects. Vulnerability means weakness. After gaining knowledge of a vulnerability or a weakness, malicious users or hackers attempt to exploit it or to take advantage of it. An exploit is the term used to describe a program written to take advantage of a known vulnerability or a weakness. The attack of using an exploit against a vulnerability is referred to as an attack. The goal of the attack is to gain access to a system, the data it hosts. The goal of the attack is to gain access to a system, the data it hosts, or to a specific resource. Software vulnerabilities are usually introduced by errors in the operating system or application code. Despite all the efforts companies put into finding and patching software vulnerabilities, it is common for new vulnerabilities to surface and to arise. For example, Microsoft, Apple, Google, and other operating system producers release patches and updates almost every day. Application updates are also common. Applications such as web browsers, mobile applications, even web servers, database servers are often updated by the companies or organizations responsible for them. The goal of software updates is to stay current and avoid exploitation of vulnerabilities. While some companies have penetration testing teams dedicated to search, find, and patch software vulnerabilities before they can get exploited, third-party security researchers also specialize in finding vulnerabilities in software. Google's Project Zero is a great example of such practice. After discovering a number of vulnerabilities in various software used by end users, Google formed a permanent team dedicated to finding software vulnerabilities. Most software security vulnerabilities fall into the categories of buffer overflow, non-validated input, race conditions, weaknesses in security practices, and access control problems. So we'll discuss them in general one by one. Buffer overflow. This vulnerability occurs when data is written beyond the limits of a buffer. As you know, buffer is space in memory. Buffers are memory areas allocated to an application. By changing data beyond the boundaries of a buffer, the application accesses memory allocated to other processes and applications. This can lead to a system crash, data compromise, or provide escalation of privileges. Non-validated input. Program often works with data input. So any application, whether it's desktop, web, or mobile, needs to take input from the user. This data coming into the program could have malicious content designed to force the program to behave in an unintended way. Consider a program that received an image for processing. A malicious user could craft an image file with invalid image dimensions. that maliciously crafted dimensions could force the program to allocate buffers of incorrect and unexpected sizes. There are some websites as well that accept CVs or profile pictures, etc. Attackers can put malicious programs in such files and upload them to the servers. Race conditions is a vulnerability that occurs when the output of an event depends on ordered or timed outputs. A race condition becomes a source of vulnerability when the required ordered or timed events do not occur in the correct order or proper timing. So in simple English, there are events that are related to each other. So the output of an event is related to the initiation of another event. So when these events do not take place chronologically, this is called a race condition. Weaknesses in security practices. Systems and sensitive data can be protected through techniques such as authentication, authorization, and encryption. Authentication is granting access to the system. Meanwhile, authorization is giving right access to data within the application. Usually, authorization happens after authentication. And encryption, of course, we will come into the details of it. It's turning text data or clear data into cipher text so that it cannot be read. Developers should not attempt to create their own security algorithms because it will likely introduce vulnerabilities. Many developers try to reinvent the wheel, which of course introduce vulnerabilities to their program. It is strongly advised that developers use security libraries or components that have already been created, tested, and verified. This will of course lessen the exposure of any application from the security perspective. Access control problems. Access control is the process of controlling who does what and ranges from managing physical access to equipment to dictating who has access to a resource such as a file and what that they can do with it, such as read, write, change, delete, etc. Many security vulnerabilities are created by the improper use of access control. Nearly all access controls and security practices can be overcome if the attacker has physical access to target equipment. For example, no matter what you set a file's permission to, the operating system cannot prevent someone from bypassing the operating system and reading the data directly off the disk. To protect the machine and the data it contains, physical access must be restricted and encryption techniques must be used to protect data from being stolen or corrupted.